The American Civil War, a period of immense turmoil and transformation in the nation's history, officially commenced on April 12, 1861. This day witnessed the Confederate Army's bombardment of Fort Sumter, a Union garrison located in Charleston, South Carolina. This act of aggression, widely regarded as the opening salvo of the war, plunged the United States into a bloody conflict that would test the very fabric of its democracy. It pitted brother against brother, state against state, and forever altered the course of American history. The Confederacy, comprised of 11 southern states that seceded from the Union, sought to preserve their way of life, deeply rooted in the institution of slavery and the belief in states' rights. They viewed the federal government's attempts to restrict slavery as an infringement upon their autonomy and a threat to their economic prosperity, which heavily relied on slave labor. The Union, led by President Abraham Lincoln, was determined to preserve the nation's unity. Lincoln, a staunch opponent of slavery, believed that the United States could not survive as a house divided against itself. He vowed to uphold the Constitution and fight to keep the nation whole, even if it meant waging war against the secessionist states. The attack on Fort Sumter ignited a firestorm across the nation. Volunteers on both sides rushed to enlist, eager to defend their respective causes. What began as a distant conflict quickly transformed into a brutal reality, one that would leave an indelible mark on the American psyche for generations to come. At the heart of the American Civil War lay a complex interplay of social, political, and economic factors, each contributing to the widening chasm between the North and the South. Slavery, the most contentious issue of the era, served as the moral battleground upon which the war was fought. The Southern states, heavily reliant on slave labor for their agricultural economies, viewed slavery as an integral part of their social fabric and way of life. They argued for states' rights, asserting the autonomy of individual states to determine their own laws and institutions, including the right to permit or prohibit slavery. The North, on the other hand, had largely transitioned to an industrial economy and viewed slavery as a moral abomination. Abolitionist sentiment had gained momentum in the decades leading up to the war, fueled by the writings of Frederick Douglass, Harriet Beecher Stowe, and other prominent voices who exposed the horrors of slavery and demanded its immediate end. Economic disparities further exacerbated tensions between the two regions. The North, with its bustling factories and growing urban centers, enjoyed a level of industrialization and economic diversity that far surpassed the agrarian South. The South's dependence on cotton production and slave labor made it vulnerable to economic fluctuations and resistant to modernization. These fundamental differences in values, economic systems, and interpretations of the Constitution created an atmosphere of animosity and mistrust that ultimately culminated in the secession of the Southern states and the eruption of armed conflict. Section 3. Turning Points from Antietam to Appomattox. Section 4. Lincoln's Legacy, Emancipation, and the Enduring Struggle for Equality.